Namaskar, hello, welcome once again to NCERT's live phone-in program. My name is Tanvi Khurana, and in this particular science session for all the class 7 students, we are going to talk about saprotrophic nutrition. Well, what exactly is saprotrophic nutrition? You'll get to know in this session from our expert. She'll be discussing with you what exactly it is, what are the other things related to it, and everything you want to know. So if you have any questions regarding saprotrophic nutrition, then please contact us and leave your questions on our email, which is dth.class7@ciet.nic.in. You're watching us live right now at the moment at PM eVidya channel number 7 and also on our YouTube channel NCERT Official. In the live chat box also you can write down your question and submit it to us. We'll be receiving them instantly, and our expert, she'll be more than happy to answer all of them. So let's meet her. She is Dr. K.V. Sridevi. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste, ma'am. Ma'am is from Department of Curriculum Studies, NCERT, New Delhi. So let's just ask her, because this is not the first session, ma'am, in relation to this topic. There were previous sessions as well. So this is in continuation. Would you like to give a recap of what has been done in the previous sessions?
Sure. Anyway, namaste everybody. Like this is basically one of the unit of class 7 science, that is nutrition in plants. So in this chapter we have already covered major concepts like what is nutrition, what are the different modes of nutrition, what is photosynthesis, and then how do plants synthesize food, and what happens with the plants that do not have chlorophyll pigment, how do they get nutrition or nutrients, and what are the different modes of heterotrophic nutrition, where in the previous session we have seen parasitic nutrition, parasites, and how they get the nutrients from other organisms. This is what we have done in the previous session.
Okay.
So this session we are going to continue with another mode of nutrition, which is called as saprotrophic nutrition. What is it, and how do they get nutrients? Like, do they have chlorophyll pigment? If they do not have, how do they get the food from? And from where do they get, and how do they get? These are few questions which we will answer. Apart from this, we are also going to discuss on how do the soil replenish the nutrients on its own.
Okay.
So what are the processes that are involved in it? So these are the content which we are going to cover in this particular session.
Okay, so let's begin with the definition of saprotrophic nutrition.
I would like to just go with few examples and then we will come to a definition. Okay. Let me just show you some pictures before we begin our session. I think children, you see this picture? I hope all of you would have seen this.
Yes, ma'am.
What is this?
It's a mushroom.
It's a mushroom, right? I think how many of you had mushroom in your meal?
I do. I love mushrooms.
You do like, okay. So mushrooms, some of them are edible in nature. Okay,
yes.
Fine. Now these are the structures that you come across, especially on wet areas, humid areas, and hot areas.
Okay.
So you find them on trees, or log of wood, or on soil, or on dung deposits wherever they find, and you find them directly on any moist surface also.
Okay.
So that means they are generally found in hot and humid spaces along with moist areas, damp areas. Now these, if you see, they have an umbrella like structure, very beautiful to look at.
Yes.
And they are very colorful actually. The picture which you are seeing, these are the common mushrooms that are available, but the other one, the lower picture, the picture which is there in the extreme right, you can see there are some colorful mushrooms also. Some are red in color, some are light green in color, some are brown in color, and so on and so forth. And they are also found in different shapes. It need not be always directly like an umbrella, the one which we are seeing in front of us, but there are different types of I mean different forms and shapes of mushrooms. So ultimately what I would like to say is, if you see this mushroom, I think many of you children, I think you must be having a confusion. Is it a plant or is it an animal?
Yeah.
Now fungi are kept in a different group. They are all total different group because they have characteristic, their structure looks like a plant body, because like a plant has stem, underground roots and shoot system, branches, flowers and fruits. Even in fungi, if you see, very interestingly, you will find a broad stem. I think all of you are able to see in the picture.
Yes.
And then you are seeing an umbrella like structure, a cap like structure, right? Apart from that, you must be wondering, how is it standing on the soil? That means there must be some structures under the ground. So here if you see the body structure of a mushroom, we have stem, cap and then gills. This is another interesting feature that is again different from the plant kingdom. Now gills are generally, we use this gills term as a respiratory organ of, for example, fishes. Here the gills have, we can say that they are also acting as a reproductive organ. These gills, they produce spores, and these spores are nothing like like seeds. When the spores fall on a proper substratum, they germinate into new mushrooms. Like how when we sprinkle seeds on the soil, if water, sunlight, everything is available appropriately, then they germinate into new plants. In the same way here also you find that the spores fall on the ground and they grow into new mushrooms. Now, the interesting part is, do they have chlorophyll? That's the question. I think throughout these sessions we are all discussing like if the importance of chlorophyll in a plant body. Any plant, if it has chlorophyll, that means it has the capability of producing food.
Right.
But these mushrooms do not have chlorophyll pigment, that means they cannot synthesize food on their own.
Okay.
So as a result, they have to depend on some process. And another interesting thing is they cannot ingest anything directly like animals. Hence, they need some soluble substance, or it should be in a liquid form to absorb the nutrients.
Okay.
Hence, this whole process is something very different from other processes that we have seen in the previous sessions. Now, how exactly it happens? Let us try to understand here. Here, simple point is, as we have seen, they live on wood or moist wood, damp surfaces, soil, and on trees, living trees also, where there is dampness. That means they live on the dead and decaying matter. I said that they live on the dung also. See, what I want to emphasize here is, it should be dead, decaying, decomposing matter. That means already it is digested half. It is easy for these organisms to depend on them. So what they do is they have some digestive juices in them. Very interesting phenomenon. So these digestive juices help in digesting the already available decomposed substances, and they convert it into a very soluble form. Okay. And then what they do, they absorb the nutrients as it is into their body. Okay. That is why we say that these organisms, they depend on dead and decomposed matter. They do not live on living substances. They do not harm the host directly, but they live on. That means they take shelter and they try to take the nutrients from the dead and decomposed substances.
Okay.
So these are one form of fungi.
Okay,
so
and we eat them.
Yeah, we do eat them, yes.
So like you said, there are different kinds of mushrooms. So are all kinds edible? And secondly, when the farmers they pluck mushrooms, how do they get to know that this is edible and this is not?
Yeah, very interesting question. There are n number of mushrooms available, and all mushrooms are not edible. there are some poisonous, highly toxic mushrooms which lead to lot of digestive and respiratory problems also.
Okay.
Now there are some particular species of mushrooms which are generally cultivated. All mushrooms are not cultivated, and the farmers are given seeds of those mushrooms which can be cultivated or which can be which are edible in nature.
Okay.
So children, let us understand one thing. We need to observe the mushrooms in the market and find out how good they are and what are the species and whether they are edible or not before cooking it. Buying it and cooking it also. So all mushrooms are not edible, but surely we have mushrooms which are edible and highly proteinaceous in nature. Okay, this is one example which I have put it in front of you. Another example, before we go for another example, let me give you a small activity to you. It's a very simple activity. What you can do is take a bread piece. I think all of you must be having at home. Just sprinkle some water on it and leave it in a moist, warm place. Don't keep it under the water or somewhere water is pouring out. No, you'll keep it in a moist place, at the same time a warm place.
Okay.
Why are these two conditions? These are the two conditions which are required for the mold to grow.
Okay.
Okay. Now do it for keep it for 2-3 days. Then what do you observe? You try to check it out at home. But right now I am going to show you how it appears and what is it, what is the color of it, and all these things we are going to discuss. But what I expect from you is, please do this experiment and then write down your observations in the notebook and have a discussion with your friends. Now how are we going to go ahead? Let us try to see. I will show you the pictures now. Children, I think all of you observe them carefully. The first one you can see, they are slices of bread. And are you able to see some patches over them, fluffy patches?
Yes.
Of which color are you seeing?
Light green, dark
light
green.
green, yeah. So you are seeing some dark green or light green patches over the bread slices. This is a type of mold.
Okay.
Okay. Second one, if you see, I think most of us, if when we are going for outing or anything, if we forget some food in a vessel and leave and come after 2-3 days, surely even in a dustbin, sometimes before the weekend when I forget to get my dustbin clean, after 2 days when I come back, I do see white fluffy matter on the surface of the dustbin or the bottom of the dustbin. In the same way, food also, or pickles or any vegetable matter or any cooked matter, you find that white spongy fluffy layer is formed. That is also a type of mold. Another thing, you can see oranges. I think this is quite common when you go to markets. You find that some oranges, you pick out the best oranges, seeing the color, texture and the shape of the orange. Here if you see this orange, a part of orange is having a white patch over that, some green patch is also there. This is also the mold. So in the same way, in rainy season especially, we find that our shoes, leather jackets, right, all these things you will find some white spots on them. When you leave it for a longer period, they turn into brown.
Yes.
Now that is also a mold. And I think you can see the children, I think you can even see a wall. I don't know how many of you are familiar of this type of walls.
We've seen it.
Yeah. See, for example, wherever in corners especially you find. Why do you see it in the corners? Corners, sometimes the water leakage, settles down in the corner, first thing, and it might be a warmer place. Hence, it's a wonderful place for the molds to grow. Then another thing, even you have clothes, like you have foot mats. When you dry them in the sunlight, and probably you would have forgotten, it would have fallen on the down somewhere. Just imagine you leave it for few days. What will happen? One is the termites will start feeding on them, start living on them. Before that, you find that you will have lot of green, white, yellow, massy structure available on it. That is again nothing but a mold. Now what do you understand from this?
That never leave things in a warm place and
moist.
Molds are not good for us.
Yeah. See, what I would like to say here is, whether it is mushroom or mold, they live in damp areas, hot not very hot, warm areas and moist places. So these are the conditions for the molds and mushrooms to grow. Now, so taking these two examples, I would like to add one more example, children. Yeast is also one form. Yeast also, it is, I think all of you are aware of it, we use them in baking food, right? So yeast is also one sort of example for this category. Now all these examples we can put them together and call them as saprotrophs. What are saprotrophs? Now let us try to understand, taking the example or keeping the examples that we have seen till now in mind. Now first and foremost thing is, all these are organisms. Okay, all these organisms, whether it is a mold, whether it is a mushroom, they depend or live on dead and decomposing matter. Okay, that's one commonality we have seen. And then these type of organisms which depend on, which cannot synthesize food, so they have to depend on others, but they do not live on others, rather they depend on dead and decomposing substances or material. Such organisms are called as saprotrophs. Now when you divide the term and try to understand the literal meaning of it, sapro and troph. Now what do you mean by troph? We have already learnt in the previous sessions. So we have learned that troph is nothing but eating and or nutrition. Trophos means nutrition. Now what is sapro? Sapro means detritus, we say in scientific words. In simple words we can use decomposing substance or decomposing matter. So the term saprotroph means organisms, that is living organisms which depend on dead and decomposing matter are called as saprotrophs. And this type of nutrition or this mode of nutrition where living organisms depend on dead and decomposing substances or material is called as saprotrophic nutrition. Like we have seen parasitic, we have seen heterotrophic, we have seen autotrophic. In the same way, this is also another mode of nutrition which is called as saprotrophic nutrition. And the best examples for this is mushrooms, fungi we should say. In fungi, mushrooms, yeast and molds, all these three fall in the same category. Now what exactly happens with this? Let us try to see important points here. In all these cases, one commonality is they all depend on dead and decaying substances or matter. Second thing is, all of them, they have certain juices, digestive juices, which convert the dead material into solution. I told you they can't take any solid material, so they can only absorb solutions. They can absorb nutrients from the solution. So what the digestive juice does is, it converts that solid dead and decomposed material into solution, and then the nutrients which are there in the solution are absorbed by the fungus. This is how they get nutrition from the different dead and decomposed material. That is why this type of nutrition is called as saprotrophic nutrition, and the organisms which take up this nutrition, mode of nutrition, are called as saprotrophs. So here now the next question comes, are all saprotrophs useful to us or harmful to us? Now let us try to understand that again. You asked me one question, whether all mushrooms are edible.
Yes.
No, all are not edible, but there are many varieties of mushroom which are edible in nature, and that is the reason that they are taken as food. So that is one of the useful characteristic feature. Another thing is, I think all of you would have heard about penicillin.
Yes.
Right? Penicillium is one of the fungus. Right? So a lot of medicines are developed through many varieties of fungi. And third important thing, as I told you, many of you must be interested or loving bakery stuffs.
Yes.
You remember one thing, bakery stuffs cannot be produced without yeast. Yeast is one of the mechanism, right? Without yeast, you don't get that soft, fluffy nature of the bakery materials. So bakery industry is depending on yeast. Like this, there are a lot of uses of fungi. But are they only useful or do they harm us? Maybe, we need to question that also. I told you there are certain mushrooms which are toxic in nature, poisonous in nature, which may cause lot of diseases in us. So like that, there are some harmful effects of, fungi. I would like to show these pictures to you. Please observe these pictures. If you have a dog at home, generally, at least in a lifespan of a dog, surely a dog might be getting a skin infection.
Okay.
That's generally a general one is a fungal infection, because dogs would love to roll on water. At the same time, they go and sit in a warmer place, so they have a tendency to get fungal infections. So you are seeing a picture of a dog with here and there, having rashes on its body. Generally these rashes start with light pink color, and then they dry and they become brown, and then they'll have severe itching on their body, and then the flakes fall, and that rapidly increases over the body.
Okay.
So animals have that. You can see in some human beings, between the fingers they will have rashes. At the same time, you find that the skin gets ruptured and painful it will be. In the same way, on the body also you will have lot of fungal infection also. If you are not maintaining hygienic conditions, not taking bath properly, children, that's why your elders say always take bath, try to keep yourself clean, drink lots of water. All these good habits your parents have been telling you, please do follow. And then you can see some plants which have pictures of certain plants. You can see like some of the leaves, especially farmers get lot of loss because of these fungal infections. There are certain fungi which infect the crop. As a result, the yield is very low in farms. In the same way, if you see maize corn is very much affected by fungal infection. That once the fungal infection starts in the maize corn, it's very difficult to control it. So as a result, farmers lose lot of income. So many fungi are also harmful. So fungi, some of them are useful and some of them are harmful.
Okay.
Now all these fungi, let us understand one thing, they depend on dead and decomposed. Most of them depend on dead and decomposing matter. That is why they are called as saprotrophic nutrition. Now another interesting thing, till now we have seen that some organisms kill other organisms and have them as food. Then another category we have seen, some organisms live on other organisms or inside the other organism and take all the nutrients from the host. They are parasites. And then we understood one thing, there are certain plants which trap insects, then trap the insect and absorb the nutrients from the insect, especially because they are deficient of nitrogen. So we call them as insectivorous plants. Another category is where they do not have chlorophyll pigment, they can't synthesize, they can't live on the living organisms, so they depend on dead organisms. Why? Because they want food in this very solution form, easily digestible form. So they depend on dead organic matter. Another category of organisms are there which want to have a sharing tendency. They have a sharing tendency. They want to share the shelter as well as food. They are called that relationship is called as symbiotic relationship. Symbiosis means living together.
Okay.
Even we people would like to live together, be happy with sharing things with each other. In the same way, you have various plants and organisms which share the shelter, at the same time food with each other. I will show you three good examples for that. You can see. I don't know how many of you have seen the movie Finding Nemo.
No, I have seen.
You have seen it? Now the whole story, you find that Nemo is a small clownfish, right? It keeps moving here and there and very naughty fish, and it goes and plays hide and seek in one particular groove. Right, that is nothing but, if you can, I think, I hope you are able to see the picture. You are seeing a sea anemone there, anemone we say.
Yes.
Anemone having lot of finger-like structures. Now, interesting part of this whole story is, this clownfish needs protection from predators. Because it's so colorful, anybody can identify it, catch it and
from a
becomes
distance.
a prey.
Yes.
So what it does is, it goes in between the tentacle-like structures of the sea anemone and hides there. Now what is that sea anemone getting from clownfish? Clownfish excreta is having lot of nutrients.
Okay.
That nutrients are taken by the anemone. So clownfish is getting shelter from sea anemone. Anemone is getting nutrients from the clownfish indirectly. Okay. So this is how they share. One is giving shelter, another is helping in getting nutrients.
Both at the end are helping each other in a way.
So they help each other and they live in a very harmonious way. I think children, we also have to live in that way. We have to help each other, share our things, develop good habits amongst us and live in a very peaceful and harmonious way.
Yes, and especially in this corona time.
Yeah, surely we have to help each other. Yes. We should see that we are careful. At the same time, whatever little help we can do to others, we have to be ready for that.
Absolutely.
Another example you can see in this picture, you will see that here there are certain fungi. We were talking about fungi. There are certain fungi which live in the roots of the higher plants or trees. These plants provide nutrient to the fungus because fungus cannot synthesize food. So fungus cannot synthesize food, so they give nutrients, and whereas fungus helps them in absorbing the nutrients and giving it to the plant. This is how they help to share with each other.
Okay.
The third one is lichens. Lichens are, if you see many of the trees and damp areas, you find this white and green structure, massy structure over the surfaces. Now these lichens have an algae and fungus in association with each other. The fungus provides shelter, water and minerals to alga, and alga provides food prepared by it to fungus. So alga gives food to fungus, fungus gives some nutrients to the alga. That is how they live very happily with each other. Now, if you see children, till now we have seen how each organism is living harmoniously with other. Now, you can understand one thing, that soil is very essential and it has lot of nutrients in it, and plants need soil for their survival, for their growth, for their living. But at the same time they need nitrogen and other nutrients, as we have discussed earlier, to prepare food, proteins, carbohydrates and so on. Now this nitrogen, when it is used up in the soil, they are in need of nitrogen, but they cannot take the atmospheric nitrogen because it is not in a soluble form. Here comes the role of a bacterium called rhizobium. This rhizobium converts the nitrogen which is in the atmosphere into consumable form for the plants. So these rhizobium, you can see the root nodules. Those root nodules are nothing but the bacteria which is trying to trap the atmospheric nitrogen, convert it into a consumable form for the plant. And this plant takes that nitrogen and tries to produce proteins in itself. That is how our all legumes, all grams, beans, peas, all these things are highly proteinaceous in nature because of nitrogen that is taken up by the plants. If there is no nitrogen of that kind, then the farmers supply fertilizers and manures to the farms in order to replenish the soil with needed nutrients like nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium and so on and so forth. Nowadays in the like organic farming, when we say, we are trying to find out the natural ways of replenishing the soil with different type of nutrients. Especially for nitrogen, what we can do is we can have leguminous crops with other crops, because leguminous crops help in getting the nitrogen replenished in the soil, so other crops can utilize that soil, that nitrogen which is there in the soil. This is how naturally we can replenish the nitrogen in the soil. If not, we have to give supplement in the form of fertilizers and manures.
Okay.
So like this we find that nutrition is of different modes and all of us depend on each other. So we have to respect each other and we have to respect the life around us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, ma'am, for being here, for sharing this information regarding the nutrition. And I didn't know that all the mushrooms were not edible. I just knew that what we eat is edible, and that's that. So, okay, thank you so much for everything, for being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to all the students, every viewer, you out there were watching this session, and I'm sure you liked it just as much as I did. So keep your questions ready for the next session as well, because we're coming back with a maths class where we are going to talk about perimeter and area, and that will be the fourth part of the same topic. So keep your questions ready and send it on ncertofficial, our YouTube channel. Stay with us, don't go anywhere, and keep yourself safe and keep your surroundings safe as well. Take great care of yourself. Thank you so much. Namaste.